What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Howard Bender. Welcome into the Fantasy Lineup NFL DFS show. It is week 11 of the NFL season here, Howard, coming off of a great week 10 of the fantasy football and NFL DFS season. 11-game slate here, kicking off for week 11. Much better slate to play with this week than we've had at that last few weeks. Some notable teams back from their byes, some notable teams on the actual main slate, not dealing with, the Sunday morning game or the Thursday game or the Sunday night or the Monday night. I was saying in the quarterback coach, it felt like forever since we've seen Miami on a main slate. In reality, it's been like 3 weeks because of the bye weeks and then their prime time games here. So it's a good time to get back into this week 11. Then next week, we have the Thanksgiving Day game, we have the Black Friday game, we have the shortened slate there on Sunday. So next week's going to be a little interesting. This week we have at least some semblance of normalcy here on the NFL calendar.
We do have some normalcy. Absolutely. One of the things that we've been talking about as well, in addition to just giving you guys all the plays and getting you what you need to know and having all the position coaches and stuff, is that we've really been trying to focus also, or at least I have, on lineup construction. Roster construction is a very, very important thing. Had a nice long conversation with Dan Malin, who has routinely been, I pride myself on being a strong cash game player. But when it comes to the GPP tournament lineups, Malin is definitely a better lineup builder than I've been. And so working with him on that, so that way, again, stick with us on the cash game stuff and make sure that you play enough cash games to cover your entry fees for GPP tournaments. And then, work on the roster construction for your GPP lineups. And, instead of breaking even, you end up with like a really great day or, right, a potentially great day.
Yeah, 100%. What's one of the great things about our Discord too, you and I, we do a lot of the content and we do a lot of the video content here, podcasting, live streams, radio shows, you name it. But in the Discord, also is our entire team of analysts, and Dan Malin is probably in that Discord more than anybody. And he is more than willing to share his strategies, his ideas. Every week he goes through and tells you what contests are best to enter based off of DraftKings, payout structure and entries and formats. The man is in there helping you guys out more than anybody, as much as anybody else is here that does the content. But that just is the reason why we're always saying, if you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Lineup family, all the content we put out is great as well, but we can't stress enough getting that access in our Discord, being able to kind of workshop your lineups, be part of the community, and get a little bit more of that one-on-one attention to detail with ourselves, with our staff here, to help you guys be successful. And that's why you look at the trophy room, on Sundays and in the NFL DFS and betting channel, and you see those screenshots that are being popped up in there from you guys having awesome nights, and we love to see that. And we're going to continue to see that moving forward here. No doubt about that. Turning the page here to week 11 here, Howard. What's some of the, maybe one of the better storylines that you're finding yourself, maybe keying in on here, whether it be matchups, players, returning players, rostership that we're currently looking at? What's sticking out to you the most right now?
Well, I think the thing that's sticking out the most is something that you and I have been talking about, and you as the quarterback coach, obviously, you're paying closer attention to it, and that is this Houston Arizona game. We expect big points for this Houston Arizona game, right? We do expect it to be. It's got a 48 over under on the game, so we expect people to attack it. Now, if you look at our ownership projections, right now it's showing that Kyler Murray is sitting there as the top potential QB. It's like Kyler Murray, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Geno Smith, Jared Goff. I don't see CJ Stroud down, until you look at was that 7th or 8th?
Yeah, QB 8, yeah.
On the list, which I find, we talk about good chalk versus bad chalk all the time. And I get everybody is super hyped about Kyler Murray and coming back. But, one of the things that we've always talked about is what do you do against Houston? You run on Houston. I like James Conner a ton in that matchup here. But, CJ Stroud on the road, at home versus Kyler Murray on the road. I'm kind of leaning on paying a couple extra bucks there for Stroud as opposed to Murray.
And one of the things you rattled off there when you were kind of running down some of the rostership there, you didn't mention any of the high-priced quarterbacks. Now, last week, you and I felt the same way. We did not want to pay up for any of those top guys. We did certainly get Prescott in our lineups. We were touting him, pretty heavily there. But we were largely living in that value in mid-tier range, and that paid off. Howell had a good game. Geno Smith, after a slow start, came through with a good game. Baker Mayfield came through with a good game. So you're rattling off those rostership projections, and it's all mid-tier quarterbacks here. Once again, you're not seeing a Josh Allen who has a tough matchup at home against the Jets. You're not seeing Tua in a game where they have like a 14-point spread at home against Las Vegas. Herbert, Prescott. You're not really seeing those guys up there at high rostership. Makes me think that once again, the field based off the current projections there are all looking to spend down at quarterback and then spend up when it comes to these skill position players, especially at wide receiver. And we'll talk about some of these matchups. Want to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it, baby.
All right, let's get into what we're looking at here today. Again, breaking down the quarterback position. I like Tua, honestly, of this top tier. Tua, Prescott, Stroud are three guys that I put in the quarterback coach. Leaving off Josh Allen, not a fan of him at home against the Jets. Again, Jets defense is still really good. Josh Allen now with a new offensive coordinator after Ken Dorsey got fired. He's been a little bit inconsistent at times. And then Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen did return to practice in a limited fashion there on Thursday. Looks like he should be fine to go against Green Bay, but Jair Alexander is expected to be back. So I don't really like the Chargers on the road here against Green Bay. So I'm living in that Allen or that Tua, Prescott, Stroud range here this week for my top tier quarterback pool. But as you mentioned, that game total with Houston and Arizona is sitting at 48, 47.5, depending on where you're looking at it. The spread is 6. Houston's a 6-point home favorite here. Nothing to me is saying that Stroud should be, a bottom 10 rostered quarterback coming off of the games that he's had. And then you go look at the home road splits, as you alluded to. He's averaging 27 fantasy points at home. And I understand that the 470 and 5 scores was at home against Tampa Bay, but he's had some good games at home this season otherwise as well. So, Stroud for me at the discounted ownership feels really good here.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that I do want to, just chime in on there between Tua and Dak Prescott, two of the higher priced quarterbacks who are out there. If we're looking at that tier, we talked about this last week. Like you were like, Dallas is going to continue doing what they're doing. And you were like one of the very few people who actually, stood by saying, Dak Prescott was who you wanted as your quarterback. So we see big spreads in those games again. But I guess the question is, do you see them having any value if somebody does want to pay up at that QB position? We're going to live lower in there, but for somebody who wants to, obviously, Tua, you worry about whether or not Achane returning is going to turn into a much more run-centric game. Sure. Because I don't see the Vegas Raiders putting up any kind of a fight. And then with Dak Prescott on the road in Carolina, is this a game that perhaps maybe Dallas could be looking ahead and not focusing on the task at hand because they've got, the Commanders on Thanksgiving next week. So it's a short week there. Do we look to fade Tua or Dak because of not only just the big ass point spreads, but because of the potential of looking past these current opponents?
So my thing here is I don't think they're ever in a full fade position. If you're making a few different lineups, I think that there's still plenty of merit to getting them in your lineup because Tua, just like Dak was last week, is just as capable of throwing just 3 touchdowns to Tyreek Hill in this spot against Las Vegas and throwing for 290, just like Prescott was last week. Now, the thing with Prescott, and I said he was going to have a good game. I didn't see them not just – I didn't see them continue to throw as much as they did. Like once they were up 3 scores, like, all right, like, I figured that might have been it. No, they just kept on throwing. He threw for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. And again, they won by 35 or whatever it was, right? By the time he was out of that game, the backups came in. All those garbage points for the Giants weren't with the starters on the field. I didn't really expect that to happen. I did expect him to be the reason they took that big lead, and I was touting him. I like that. I feel the same way, though. I mean, what have they shown you to say that they're not just going to let Dak Prescott throw the football here? So the fact that we're looking at them is at like 4%, 5%, a little bit lower depending on where you're going as well. If you're making a couple of lineups, you and I like to play the 3 max tournaments. I would 100% say make a Tua lineup or make a Prescott lineup, stack them with Hill, stack them with CeeDee Lamb, because nothing that we've seen from these teams has made me think that they won't continue to have that sort of GPP winning potential here. Especially when everybody's playing a guy in Kyler Murray who, he was fine against Atlanta. He didn't throw for a touchdown. He completed less than 60% of his passes. He had a rushing touchdown. I mean, I know you can't take away scores here, but is he going to run for a touchdown against Houston? Maybe. I know running's part of his game, but 18 fantasy points is all he gave you. I mean, if he has a game now on the road where he's completing 60% of his passes and doesn't throw for a touchdown, and the majority of the field, and we're talking about over 20% expected rostership here on Kyler Murray this week. If he goes for 15 fantasy points, you're going to beat the field in most of your contests here. Assuming you make still the right moves elsewhere, but you have a huge edge at the quarterback position, fading Kyler Murray and assuming you get not a ceiling game from Kyler, but even just an average game from Kyler. He's not $5K, he's $6,100. So it's not like he's as cheap as he's been.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. All right, just kind of curious as to what the QB whisperer has to say about paying up for those guys. Where else do we? Jared Goff against Chicago at home that's likely to be a pretty chalky play as well. I've been eyeballing it just for cash games. I know that they obviously have that strong running game, but if you look at the way the matchups work against the Bears, their run defense has been pretty rock solid. They're gonna have to take it to the air, which Jared Goff. Give me Jared Goff. I'm on Ross St. Brown.
Yeah, I think it was their matchup last week against Carolina, right? And they didn't allow more than 30 yards rushing. I think it's now 5 straight games that they hadn't allowed a 50-yard rusher to the opposing running back or something like that. So that's because teams are beating them through the air and they're not really looking to run the football, or so that they can't stop, or they're just really good at stopping the run right now. It'll be a big test this week because what did we see last week? That video I sent you, the Detroit Lions offensive line is just full of absolute monsters. They moved the Chargers with that video, and I'll share it on my Twitter as well. There was a video that was shot on one of the long runs there where as soon as the ball was snapped, the entire defensive line of the Chargers was already 3 yards back on the line of scrimmage. The Lions just completely did whatever they wanted. Now, Chargers defensive line, we know sucks. The Bears defensive line for a lot of this year has had its struggles. Now they have Montez Sweat now, changes a little bit on their pass rush here. But if Detroit's offensive line is that good and they can do whatever they want, I don't think Chicago's going to stop them defensively. You have the David Montgomery revenge game, if you want to put that on the calendar here as well. And I don't know if you saw the Jahmyr Gibbs clip from the St. Brown podcast that he did. David Montgomery was actually supposed to be one of the guys out there for that 1-yard plunge.
Gave him the touchdown. So that's a killer for you and I, who was playing the 1% David Montgomery that he should have probably had two. It took a 75-yard touchdown for him to get the one. But yeah, I worry here. I don't really worry about Goff, but he's not, again, I think I agree with you. I think he's a good cash game play this week. But we know Detroit wants to run the football, so I do worry maybe that we don't get a ceiling game, but home for Goff has always been the spot for us. In this mid-tier, I'm just going to keep playing Sam Howell. I mean, most pass attempts in football. It is what it is. The Giants are, as we just saw, Dak Prescott threw all over them here. Sam Howell at $6,300. Last 3 games, even 28, 21, 34. Like, why are you paying $6,100 for Kyler Murray
when you have Sam Howell here throwing as more than anybody in football. It doesn't. To me, I don't. It doesn't really make much sense. I'd much rather play Sam Howell with Terry McLaurin this week than for $200 more than Kyler Murray in a spot where I feel like there's some inconsistencies.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you there. So, all right. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Howell's just been steady. And what was it? You said it the other week. Throws for 300, 1 touchdown and 1 pick, and it's still 21 DK.
21 fantasy points. He's like, he throws so much, it doesn't matter. So, and those of you who are like, well, the running backs, this could be a great spot for the running backs. Antonio Gibson and Brian Robinson both have been catching touchdown passes lately as well. So, there's even the added value to the passing game there. Those of you who are detractors of Sam Howell this year, has he been perfect? No, but from a fantasy perspective, he's been beautiful, averaging over 20 fantasy points for a game for a guy that is just now, literally first time all season he's cracked 6K. He's averaging 20 fantasy points per year. The disrespect on the Sam Howell name has been ridiculous for a guy throwing 45 times a game. So I'm locking in Sam Howell at $6,300. I'm locking in Stroud. I'll sprinkle some Dak. I'll sprinkle some Tua. When we get below here, I do like Brock Purdy. I know we mentioned the roster shift for Trevor Lawrence. I think Lawrence is fine. I think this is sort of a prove it week for him because this is going to be one of the better matchups that he's had. He's another guy that's sort of fallen victim to the fact that Travis Etienne is just running in too many touchdowns. So when they do get in that red area or that green area, it's not Trevor Lawrence throwing, it's Travis Etienne running. So the production could be better than the 15-point fantasy points we've gotten. But I like Brock Purdy, I think, a little bit better here than Lawrence just because he's a bit cheaper.
Yeah, no, I like Brock Purdy better also because I think I feel like I can also use Brock Purdy for cash. Now, obviously, it's Christian McCaffrey, and the offense runs through him for the most part. But the Tampa Bay run defense has been rock solid, and when you have corners like Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis, maybe they're struggling in coverage, but if you're throwing like a dump off pass to Christian McCaffrey, those corners, they make it in there and they can kind of do some damage on that front. So I think Purdy throws a little bit more. Purdy for me, like Lawrence is strictly a GPP tournament play. If you're doing a couple of different lineups and you want to try out that, that Jag stack against this Tennessee secondary, because one of the things that Andrew Cooper and I have we've kind of dove in on is the amount of zone coverage versus man coverage that the Tennessee Titans are using. And with the injuries that the Tennessee Titans are dealing with in that secondary, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, they've actually tilted much more towards zone coverage than man coverage because they just don't have the personnel. Right. So I like that aspect for Lawrence. I also love the fact that nobody wants to play him. I'm surprised that his ownership is where it is right now. I'm very curious to see where that ends up because, if everybody hates a guy, I want to use him. But if everybody's going to start using him in GPP tournaments, I don't necessarily know if I want to go in that direction. A Purdy stack would actually probably, a 49ers move would be a little better for me. So I agree with you. My one thing with Lawrence as well is if this game comes to a point where Jacksonville's playing from ahead, Will Levis obviously after his debuts had a couple of rough games here. Jacksonville to me is a team that profiles as someone that will just run the ball, kill the clock and close this game out here, and that may limit. We might need Trevor to be super efficient scoring the ball early in this one. Or else the yardage isn't going to be there for him. He's not a guy that throws a lot anyways, unless there are these back and forth games. And then Etienne, even though, it's tough to run on Tennessee, could be a guy that still ends up with 20 carries in this one as they just sort of close it out. So, again, I don't mind Lawrence for tournaments either. I favor Purdy a little bit more here against Tampa Bay. And then I don't really look to play anybody else. There's nobody else. There's nobody else below that I even remotely want to play.
No, I know some people in our Discord have asked about Jordan Love this week because it is the Chargers. I'm not going to go there. I think I might like Aaron Jones a bit more when we get to the running back position in that spot.
Yeah, it's too low a ceiling for Jordan Love.
Right.
And I had this conversation with somebody actually about Romeo Doubs. I love Romeo Doubs, and Romeo Doubs has been a reliable guy. But Romeo Doubs is catching what, 4, 5 passes maybe in a game. He's giving you, 30, 40, maybe 50 yards. And, occasionally he gets into the end zone. There's just, it's a run first scheme that LaFleur wants to do. And now that he's got Aaron Jones back, yeah, I think that's definitely the way I want to lean in that game. I have no interest in Jordan Love.
Yeah, I'm with you. Moving on over to the running back position here. I actually found the running back position to be a little bit more interesting this week from a sort of a construction perspective. How did you find yourself attacking it with the watch list today?
Really kind of interesting. I mean, I like Eckler up at the top right there against Green Bay. I mean, we just saw Green Bay get destroyed by the tandem of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. Right. So Eckler has to be in play for me. Just kind of taking a look at him in that realm. But, McCaffrey's super pricey in not a great matchup. ETN, pricey, not a great matchup for him. I don't want to touch Barkley. And so for me, it's like it all starts basically at the $7,000 and below. Like I like Jahmyr Gibbs. I like Raheem Mostert in this matchup. Going further down, even Devon Achane might be, worth a look if he's active. But that's kind of where I'm starting. Like Eckler, if I'm building a GPP lineup, I mean, I'm going to see if I can fit him in cash. I don't think I'm going to be able to.
Mm-hmm.
We have not seen a whole lot of value revealed on this slate yet.
No. I got one value running back that we can touch on as we move our way down that I want to get your thoughts on.
Sure.
I was with you when it came to the value. I wasn't really spending up. I'll say this. I was surprised last week because Christian McCaffrey was 30% rostered still at his price point.
Yeah.
It comes to a point where we wonder, are people willing to spend? I think the difference last week was we didn't have the wide receivers really to spend up on like we have this week. So maybe that will take away some of the rostership on CMC here. So very curious to see how that plays out. I do like Eckler, but I was again kind of agreeing with you here. I like Montgomery. I like Aaron Jones here. I like Brian Robinson if I'm not going to go in with a Howell lineup against the Giants. James Conner coming back in those Houston stacks, I think is where I want to live here. Came back last week at 16 for 73. Surprisingly, didn't actually catch a football. He's someone that they will throw to every now and then there. So, like, he's at 57. If Node Pierce, I guess I chase it and hope that we get this performance out of Singletary and not this performance out of Singletary. But, running the ball against Arizona has certainly been successful for a lot of teams. So I was kind of living with you in this 6K and below range at the running back position.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be the good spot. It's really kind of funny. I was sitting there, we were talking about Houston, and if we were going to build a stack against them there, Malin and I were talking about, bringing something back against the stack. Some people say you don't have to do it. It depends on really where you're stacking. Like, if I'm sitting there and I'm stacking Washington Commanders, I don't want to bring back anybody from the Giants. Even Saquon Barkley, it doesn't do anything for me. When you think that it's going to be a lopsided game, chances are is that it's going to be a lopsided game and bringing something back. But if you're talking about a game that should be competitive, should have a back and forth like the Houston-Arizona game, the question is do you throw in, if you're stacking Houston, do you throw in James Conner as what's coming back from the stack, or do you do a guy like Trey McBride, who is going to get peppered with targets again? Mm-hmm. And Malin was actually like, this is like the rare time where he would actually consider two guys coming back against his Houston stack.
Yeah.
So like she showed me a lineup that he was just kind of playing around with that had both Connor and McBride in there. Obviously there's, other things that you want to try and do and maneuver in order to make it happen. But I mean, I think that, Brian Robinson is in a great spot. James Conner is definitely in a great spot. And I love kind of leaning in that range right now. I'd be hard pressed to really build something that's going to use anybody, any running back above 7K. at least on DraftKings. I have to look at the pricing over on FanDuel as well, which is why we give you guys who we like. But FanDuel pricing for running backs is always a little bit steeper.
Yep. Again, Aaron Jones is the first running back I put in my lineup here this week. I know last week against Pittsburgh didn't look that great, but it's a Pittsburgh team. Assuming the hamstring's okay, I see that he's obviously limited here. Kind of been limited for a little bit, but generally expected to be good to go. Chargers are allowing the second most receptions to the running back position this season. We know Aaron Jones can be a big part of that passing offense here. I'll cut right to the value play I want to get your talk on here, and that is Tyjae Spears at $4,600. Now we're talking Tennessee, Jacksonville. No team has allowed more receptions to the running back this year than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if you look at Tyjae Spears here, I know for tournaments you may not love the potential, I want to say maybe here, Howard, but gave you double-digit fantasy points last week. He's generally sat in the 6-7 fantasy point range. He did have a ceiling game when he scored a touchdown against Indy. 8 fantasy points here. If they're trailing in this game, we could very well see a ceiling reception game here from Tyjae Spears, who's getting a pretty healthy amount of targets for a running back. He's getting his fair share of carries here. If I'm looking just for like a last piece spend down, maybe in a flex, or if I want to be different at RB2 because I want to get, spend up at a quarterback or double spend up at wide receiver, this week I don't mind going Tyjae Spears as that guy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a definitely an interesting way to take a look at it. He saw 5 targets. That's the thing. Levis has been the QB for what, 3 weeks now?
Yeah. Yep.
And we've seen an average of 5 targets per game for Tyjae Spears. So it does work. Like if you're looking for that pay down, it definitely does work. I think that everybody's kind of souring on Derrick Henry, and I think that this could be. I mean, if you're loading him into a GPP lineup, you're expecting even money. You would like that touchdown for him to kind of get over that hump. If you're looking for high ceiling type plays there, like that's one of the things we kind of got. I don't want to say we got catfished into it, but we kind of got catfished into that Tennessee Tampa Bay game last week. Now, we went in on the Baker Mayfield side of things there, but I was looking at the over in that game for betting, and that didn't happen because Levis and the Titans didn't do anything there. So when you're looking at a game like this, it's 39 and a half in some place. I think it was even at 40 over on BetMGM. Do we want to invest in the low scoring side of a low scoring implied total game?
Yeah. So again, for me, I think it's more so game flow here a little bit, and you're not right. You're not wrong. You're looking to try to get at least 2x return when you're playing a guy. Gave you that last week against Tampa Bay because they were trailing. From a betting standpoint, yes, they were never going to hit the over there, but Mike Evans also dropped what should have been a surefire touchdown.
Dude, that killed me, man.
In the end zone there, you and I stacking the Mayfield Evans stack there. But like I said, I do think that there's potential for ceiling receptions in this one, just given how bad Jacksonville is against the pass play of the running back. And teams know that. Like teams go in there and just target running backs against Jacksonville there, I think, because of that. So again, a little dart throw play with Tyjae Spears, I think, in tournaments. Could be something, especially if you find yourself playing the Trevor Lawrence stack. Most people go to DeAndre Hopkins, but like you don't feel comfortable playing anybody else really in that offense. No. Tyjae Spears could be someone to take a peek at. We did have the game theory question last week, and I brought it up to you, Howard, about Rico Dowell. He ended up cashing 13.9 fantasy points. He got the junk touchdown there at the end of the game. Dowell's another big favorite here. It's not the perfect scenario to kind of take those shots, but 12 for 79 and a score. I don't know. People are talking about it again.
I think if you're a multi-lineup player, and I mean like you're playing a lot of lineups.
20 max, maybe?
Yeah, like if you're doing the 20 max there, then you want maybe some exposure to Dowdle just to see, because Dallas is starting to realize that, they miss Ezekiel Elliott a lot more than they thought they were going to. And Tony Pollard's production has dropped off because they've been trying to use him as the guy who does it all. So we've seen Dowdle's snaps and touches increase. Now, the other thing that you have to take into consideration is just how bad that matchup was. Right. But I guess, when you're looking at Carolina here, it really ain't that much better. So I do think Dowdle works as a possible pay down if you're doing the 20 max. Let me ask you. I'll ask you about a guy here.
Yeah.
He's only 5K, and that's Darrell Henderson. So Kyron Williams isn't coming back. I mean, at least not this week.
Yeah, next week.
So it's gonna be Darrell Henderson. Yes, you've got Royce Freeman, who's also gonna pull some snaps there, but Henderson seems to have been the lead back as this has gone on, and you're going up against Seattle, who, listen, on the road, they're also the team that's given up the sixth most fantasy points per game to the running back position. So while Henderson might be sharing some of that workload, what do you think about him at 5K?
Yeah, I think he's fine for a little bit of a tournament play. You also don't know just how healthy the thumb is for Stafford either, and if he's going to be able to throw the football. So I don't mind it. I don't mind Henderson. Obviously, the biggest issue I've had with him is the efficiency. 3.4, 2.6, 1.9 yards per carry is not instilling a bunch of confidence in him, but I do like the fact that they have thrown him the football a little bit. So, I'm fine going there if you want to look for another spend down. The other running back that I was looking at in this range was where was it? It was Gibson. If we weren't going Robinson, targets 16 catches the last 3 weeks for Antonio Gibson. Has some touchdown potential here. They're, are they going to be in a competitive game? Probably not. To me, that takes him away a little bit, but just for a PPR matchup there. I guess he didn't practice Friday either, so maybe more reason to look at Brian Robinson in this game if Antonio Gibson's rolled out.
Yeah.
Robinson might be a core play.
What about here's another one just to kind of throw out there. Jaylen Warren. I mean,
it's a Cleveland matchup for me. I worry.
What's that? Or not Jaylen Warren. I meant right above him, Jerome Ford.
So Jerome Ford's not. I don't mind Jerome Ford. Again, big play guy. So he's paying it off of those big runs. Had the 28-yarder. I guess my latest problem now at Ford is the fact that Kareem Hunt's their goal line back. So they get in the red zone and look at Kareem Hunt's is running touchdowns every week. So. Yeah. I think either Cleveland back could be interesting. It's just the quarterback now, right? DTR is your quarterback in Cleveland for this week. He did not look good in that one start he had earlier this year. So, what does this offense look like now? A lot more RPOs probably than we were usually getting with Watson or even PJ Walker at quarterback. So, I don't know how much that changes for Pittsburgh and how they're going to defend this team. If they're just going to be like, all right, throw on us if you can. We're going to focus on stopping the run this week. So I don't have much of Cleveland, but if I did, I'd probably lean with the guy that's rushing for the touchdowns than Ford here personally.
Cool. All right.
Let's move on over to the wide receiver position where obviously it gets a little bit more exciting. Tyreek Hill is $9,300. CeeDee Lamb is $92. Stephon Diggs, as disgruntled as he is $91. Keenan Allen, $9K. I'll throw Amon-Ra St. Brown in there. Why not? He's close enough. So these are your top 5 priced wide receivers on the slate. I'm not playing Diggs against Sauce given what's going on in Buffalo right now, but I think there's value to playing all 4 of the other wide receivers.
There's definite value to playing all the other 4 wide receivers. There's no doubt about it. If you can fit their price, if it fits your build and it fits what you're trying to do with your roster, then absolutely, make that happen for you. Diggs is kind of an interesting situation here because if you look at the way Diggs lines up, the majority of his snaps, he's actually lining up in the slot, right? Looking over at Pro Football Focus right now, 32% on the left side, 36% out of the slot, 30% on the right side of things. We know that Sauce Gardner does not shadow.
Sure.
And so the question is, Joe Brady, will he just continue? Listen, I love Joe Brady as an offensive coordinator. I think he got the raw deal in Carolina, and Matt Rule made him the fall guy, and that shouldn't have been the case. And then the Panthers realized it when they were like, shit, all right, we'll fire Matt Rule. So, I think that Joe Brady could end up doing some interesting things if the Jets don't shadow Sauce Gardner. So I'm not going to rule him out. I think he's more of a tournament play. I think you could use Hill or Lamb or Keenan Allen or Amon-Ra in cash games and be happy with, knowing that their floor is, better than most people's ceilings.
Yeah.
But Diggs I'll use in a tournament because I think, again, with the struggles of Buffalo lately, I think everybody's going to be off him.
Sure. That's fine by me. Do you have a favorite of the Hill, Lamb, Allen, Brown? Got to pick one?
No, I don't have a favorite. I love them all.
Okay. I agree. I think they're all in great spots. I think Allen's probably last for me there. I really like, again, how do you go away from a guy that's now had 10 or more catches in 3 straight with 153 straight? He's the only guy to do that in football history. So continue to lock in CeeDee Lamb for me. Mid-tier gets, again, a little bit interesting. We know the struggles of Tampa Bay secondary. You have Brandon Ayuk at 72. Deebo Samuel's down here at 63. Talk to me about this mid-tier range. We like Purdy, so I imagine we like one of these, if not both of these wide receivers.
Yeah, I like Ayuk and I like Deebo Samuel. I think I just put Ayuk into the watch list of the latest updates. I think they're in a rock solid spot here as well. I think that we skipped down. We bypassed Evans. I wouldn't be against Evans, although Baker Mayfield with the thumb, I'm going to have to watch that, especially with San Francisco's pass rush. So Ayuk, I mean, listen, I think Metcalf is always in play. I really do. He's incredibly talented. I'll probably avoid it though, because I hate Geno Smith. I hate Geno Smith so much. It pained me to use Geno Smith in my cash game lineups last week, but I mean, that's just, he
came through for you though.
Yeah, he did. He came through for me. It worked in the build and I went with it, but I hate him so much.
I've always obviously been a big fan of Metcalf. Now, Tyler Lockett did not practice on Thursday with the hamstring, so we'll have to see what happens there, because that's going to open up JSN as a pretty nice value play on this slate if that ends up happening here. But obviously, if Lockett's out, Metcalf certainly gets a little bit more look to here, I think. I know in week 1 he had that touchdown. I was expecting a little bit more success out of Metcalf. He actually kind of opened his mouth ahead of that week 1 matchup, being like, I can't name any of their cornerbacks now that Ramsey's not there. And he went 3 for 47, and that surprising loss. Everybody obviously week 1 was coming out thinking Seattle was going to blow doors on the Rams, and that wasn't the case. So we'll be interesting to see how that one plays for sure. But I do like Lockett if he ends up suiting up. We go down into the 6K range is where I think it gets a little bit more interesting. We talk, scheme when it comes to fit. And I believe it was the head coach of Jacksonville there after the first week of the season said Indy played a lot of zone. It wasn't a great matchup for Christian Kirk, but you had man going up against Kansas City and he went out and torched them. I think that was the way that was phrased here. So if you're telling me that Tennessee plays a lot of zone now, does that bode better for Calvin Ridley, who just kind of settles into these pockets and is open for passes?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you're looking at like probably like a 60-40 split right now between zone and man. So I don't want to I don't want to say that Ridley is automatically going to be the best guy. I think one of the things that's going to hinge on it as well is whether or not Sean Murphy Bunting is healthy enough to play, and he's going to be in there. I know that he's questionable for this game. If Murphy Bunting is in, then they'll probably try and utilize a little bit more man coverage to do that, which would enable Christian Kirk to be in a better spot here. But until I get word on Sean Murphy Bunting, I mean, again, I'm not looking at. It's funny. I'm not looking at either Kirk or Ridley as a one-off guy. Like, I'm looking at them in the same realm as, do I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to bounce back? And is this the get-right game for this passing attack? So, I'm waffling. Like, I was like, when Malin and I were talking and I was building just some lineups, just being like, all right, is this what you're talking about? I said, ignore the fact that it's a Jacksonville stack. I was just talking about it on the air as a possibility, based off of, research and stuff. But, take a look at that. But I don't think I'm really looking at like Kirk or Ridley outside of anything but like a GPP stack of some Jags.
Yeah, it was after week 1. Peterson said he expected Kirk to get more of an opportunity to produce against Kansas City because they play more man and press coverage. He's really good at getting off the line and beating his man versus zone, where he has a little bit more of a tougher time. So if they are playing, more man, we'll see what happens there. But like you said, maybe a split. what I mentioned on this tier, though, you have Tank Dell at $5,900. You have Terry McLaurin at $5,800. Two guys I've been really in on. Nico Collins is here at 67. Now we'll have to see if he's playing. He's limited at practice. He's been the team's number one in quotations wide receiver all season long. If he's in, does that take away anything from Tank Dell for you here? I mean, Dell's been pretty good these last 2 weeks.
Dell's been great these last couple of weeks. Noah Brown's been great these last couple of weeks, but Noah Brown has popped these last 2 weeks because Nico Collins has been banged up, right? It was like 2 games ago, Nico Collins left early and Noah Brown just kind of lit it up. And
Robert Woods was out for that.
Oh, Robert Woods was also out from that game as well. So Woods was out and Noah Brown popped. And then last week, Nico Collins was out. Robert Woods came back, but he worked the outside. So Noah Brown handled the slot work.
Yeah.
This week here, if Collins is back, it's Collins and it's Dell. And then it's going to probably be Robert Woods working out of the slot against Arizona. So I might be intrigued on him. I'm not looking at I'm not really looking at Collins right now, just price wise.
Yeah.
But I could definitely be swayed into that. But I do like Tank Dell in this matchup against Arizona.
Yep. I'm with you there. Again, McLaurin's one of my favorite wide receivers of the week at $5,800. Now, as I say that, after coming off of a goose egg, would it shock you if Jahan Dotson ends up having the big day? Wouldn't surprise me if that ended up being the case. But McLaurin certainly at $5,800 is too cheap for what he can bring to the table. Again, I like Ridley this week. If you wanted to go Hollywood and a comeback there, I'm not going to sit here and argue that, but we did see, Cincinnati last week, both Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and Irwin all had huge games against Houston secondary. So, Kyler maybe could have some success there. Not really going against Cleveland's defense with these Pittsburgh wide receivers. Deontay Johnson last week, just a ridiculous letdown performance out of him there. JSN's here at 43, and then Quentin Johnson 42.
Yeah, it's an intriguing level of players right now. If Lockett's out, I'll definitely look at Smith-Njigba. Like if he's out for sure, I would definitely look at that. But listen, I don't want any part of this Pittsburgh-Cleveland passing attack. Neither one of them, right? Like, Deontay Johnson, George Pickens going up against this Cleveland secondary.
Nope.
Kenny Pickett is not strong at all, so I want to avoid that. Cooks is in a great spot. The question is Cooks going to be featured again, like he was against the shitty teams, or
I can't believe they threw so much. I was in on the passing offense, but they just exceeded even my expectations for a game that they were up so much on. So, he's fine. QJ caught the touchdown pass. Still not really lighting it up here.
No, but if Jair Alexander is shadowing Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnston definitely becomes a little bit more of an intrigue at 42.
Yep. Jaden Reed, another great game for him. I know we're not in love with Love, but I don't mind Jaden Reed here against the Chargers.
He's getting peppered with the targets, man. He's definitely getting peppered with the targets. No doubt about it. Let me see just a couple of things that we Robert Woods, just some names also in this like real shit sucking area here. Number one, how about Darius Slayton? Like if you're building yourself a Washington stack, if you did want to bring back something hoping for garbage time, would Slayton be that intrigue there? It's a terrible secondary. We know that. And he is the target leader in this offense, no matter who's under center.
Not for me. Too low of a floor, I think. If he beats me, then he beats me. I don't really want to take that chance there. More probably interest in Jalen Guyton here.
Okay.
$3,300 had the 6 targets in the score. I think I'd rather go Guyton in that range, and then Wilson should have had a touchdown, could have had a touchdown. I think they ended up ruling him out, or there was a penalty that ended up calling it back or something like that. But he's playing just a boatload of snaps still. The target share was fine, $3,400. Everybody focuses on Hollywood Brown and Trey McBride, but Wilson's still on the field, still getting thrown at. So some cheaper options down there that I don't want the Giants. I get it how bad Washington has been, and maybe this is their spot. Maybe this is their spot for the Giants to do a little bit something offensively here against a bad Washington defense that traded away their 2 best defensive linemen, and their cornerbacks aren't all that great, but just feels like too low of a floor for me here. If Treylon Burks doesn't play, any interest maybe in Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, $3,100?
I kind of dabbled in Nick Westbrook-Ikhine last time. Not a terrible call. I mean, again, that's if I'm 20 lineups in.
Sure.
That kind of a thing. Hey,
Bobo?
somebody that you did not mention that I'm just kind of curious is only 5,600. You didn't say anything about DJ Moore. This game against Detroit, over under is 48.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, we don't love Chicago, but we are supposedly going to get Fields back. If you were to sit there and you were to look at if you were looking for some correlation, let's say you wanted to use Amon-Ra. Let's say you wanted to use either a Detroit stack, or you wanted to use like Amon-Ra or Sam Laporta, and you wanted some correlation back. Would you consider DJ Moore at 5,600?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. No arguments with him here. I think the price is great. Again, I find myself kind of living with like a 1 spend up wide receiver, and then this McLaurin range. Ridley was kind of the guy I plugged in. Moore was someone I was looking at, but I don't mind DJ Moore here. Again, target share has been fine. I think Khalil Herbert is supposed to be back this week too, right?
Khalil Herbert is supposed to be back. Yes.
So this is going to be like the healthiest this Bears offense has been all season almost, right? With Herbert, Moore, Fields all together here. So yeah, I don't mind the DJ Moore call. Obviously, we know the upside, and you can't really run on Detroit, so throwing against them would certainly be the way to attack them. So yeah, that is. We just saw what Keenan Allen did to Detroit last week. So I'm not saying DJ Moore will beat Keenan Allen, but I think the production could be there for him. That's a good shout.
Okay.
Anybody else? A wide receiver?
No, I think that's kind of where I'm at. It's kind of where I'm living.
Okay. Tight end. The entire world is playing Trey McBride this week. He's the highest owned player overall on the slate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, does that make it wrong, John?
Nope. It made it better when he was 3,500. Now he's 4,400. So he's priced appropriately. But this is another position where I didn't really love a lot. I'd be fine going Logan Thomas if you wanted to at $3,700. I know Luke Musgrave's name always gets thrown around here. Not a ton of targets, but he makes some big plays. He does find the end zone. He's $3,600. Chig here at 32. Again, I know a guy that targets have been a little bit better in the 3 weeks that we've seen from, but the production hasn't really followed suit, but he's cheap.
He is cheap.
I think I like Ingram here a little bit at 43. As a pivot off of McBride if you're going Jacksonville, because he gets a lot of targets. Fields was not throwing to Cole Kmet. So I don't know. I don't think we continue to see Cole Kmet play like this. We talk a lot, you and I, Howard, young rookie quarterbacks like to throw to their tight end. Should you be shocked that all of a sudden Cole Kmet's getting a whole bunch of targets with Agent there? So, tough for me to trust Kmet at that spot. Can't go to Njoku this week. So tight end for me was a tough play. I think for Laporta 58, I guess.
Yeah, Laporta's in a good spot. When I was kind of building some lineups, I was trying to, figure out where I wanted to attack in that game, where I wanted to go. And it's, it's disappointing that you poo-pooed Cole Kmet so quickly like that. And I was just playing around with the lineup here, and I was like, I could do this or I could do that. And I put Cole Kmet in there at the tight end spot. And then because I was able to pay up at wide receiver, I got myself a little Amon-Ra.
Yeah.
But it just,
it's not that he didn't throw to him. I guess
killed it.
I guess I was being a little too harsh, but I just felt like we should have been getting better production out of him. We had that big game against Denver. One of these games, he wasn't even. This was a Fields game. He had the 2 touchdowns, 5 for 5, and then kind of disappeared. Had the 0 game against Las Vegas. I don't know. if you want to put him in, I guess it's fine. Maybe they've figured out how to unlock him in their game plan now. So
it would be nice to see them unlock him a little bit more. And you know what? If Detroit's beating him up or whatever, I could still see some, if maybe Fields' thumb isn't all that great, and maybe, maybe he hits it on somebody's helmet in the game and he pulls a Joe Burrow and leaves, and then it's Bajent throwing to Cole Kmet all day.
Sure, agreed. Any other tight ends?
No, I don't think. I am not going to the Stone Smart level of Andrew Cooper's tight end coach.
What about Michael Mayer?
Mayer's actually intriguing because I have him in the watch list, and I'll say this, right? He's been seeing decent targets. He sees about 5 targets per game. He's done that now for the last 5 weeks since he kind of surpassed Austin Hooper on the depth chart.
Yeah, it's like about an average of that. I mean, he had a couple of 2-target weeks against the Giants and the Bears there, but 6, 4, 2, 2, and 5. So kind of worked himself into that. Now, again, some of this was with McDaniels, some of it was without McDaniels. So, we'll kind of see. For me, it's more so game flow. If they're going to be down 20, you can just get Michael Mayer against prevent defense, second string secondary here, and Aiden O'Connell is just kind of dumping down. I don't see Michael Mayer being the guy they take off the field, unlike they would with like Devontae Adams, where they put like Scott out there or something like that in his place. Mayer, I think, stays on the field in a blowout situation, or soft defense situation. I think he could be someone that just kind of gets cheap yardage there at some point in this game.
Definitely a possibility. Cheapy, sure, why not?
Yep, that's all I got though.
As far as defenses go, one of the things that we were kind of talking about, again, Malin and I.
Actually, let me throw one more tight end. I apologize for interrupting you.
Oh, what do you got?
Tyler
Conklin? I mean, he gets the targets.
And Buffalo secondary has been in trouble.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I have Conklin in the watch list, 100%. As long as he's still seeing, if he's going to see 5 to 7 targets per game, I mean, you have to hope for the touchdown to raise the ceiling up a little bit. But for the, he doesn't really need to do much to return on that $2,900 salary. If he catches 5 passes for 50 yards,
yeah,
he's already exceeding value.
I think I'm going to have a lot of Tyler Conklin in this game.
All right.
I mean, he's been pretty. A couple bad weeks, obviously, but like for the most part, he's been pretty good.
Sure.
Pretty good. All right, go back to your defense. Apologies for cutting you off.
No worries. I mean, listen, you can pick your defenses, pick who's got these like nice matchups, but don't let defenses become such a crapshoot. Like everybody's like, you're hoping for, the pick 6. You're hoping for the fumble recovery for the touchdown. You're hoping for like a run back on a kickoff. You're hoping for all of that stuff. I mean, you can live around like the Cleveland defense because the sack total is going to be there. Myles Garrett is a good option, 100%. So, look and find the defense that's just going to fit your build. Like, last week we spent so much time just locking in the Dallas defense at 4,400 that we missed opportunities. Like Cleveland's defense was at what, 3K?
Yeah, I mean, I had 3 lineups. 1 had Cleveland, 2 had Dallas. Dallas D was on par with them until all the garbage time points came through, and the Giants end up putting up 17 points, and you lose 5 points, on your score there. But they were 4,400. 13 fantasy points really wasn't. We were looking for 20, right? We thought there would be more turnovers there. I will say, I don't know if Carolina scores a touchdown this week. I would do another no touchdown bet. Probably, I think on Carolina here against Dallas. I don't think Bryce Young has been sacked. Was it like 18 times the last 4 weeks? I don't know if this bodes well for him here against Dallas, even though they're at home. But the defense I have plugged into my lineups have been the New York Jets, Howard. Again, I am just not buying into Buffalo. I don't think Buffalo does enough to hurt me playing the Jets at $2,600 here either. We know Josh Allen's turning the ball over. The Jets defense is sacking everybody. And they had 3 picks against Buffalo in that game. He had 3 picks against Jalen Hurts. So they're faced some good offenses, and they've really shut them down. I mean, they're not winning games, but who was scoring against them really, right? Like, no, they're not really giving up a ton of points. They gave up 27 to the Chargers there, had 5 sacks, 5 fantasy points, or 5 fantasy points in 2,600. You could do worse, but we know what the ceiling can be. So, for spend down, because I am spending up at some spots. I've played a lot of Jets so far in my builds.
Okay. I've actually used a variety of defenses in all of my builds, just seeing who fits where. And really, again, focusing so much on focusing on the correlation. I feel like that's something that I've really been missing in a lot of my lineups, early on in the season, my GPP lineups. And as a result, like that's what stood out the most about my conversation with Dan Malin was, when you're doing your build, how much correlation do you have? Now, I've always been about bringing somebody back against your stack. But like, Malin, had me taking it a step further, even in lineup, construction. And it definitely makes sense. So here, ready? Plug this in. You ready?
Yep.
CJ Stroud. Your running backs are Devon Achane, because he's back.
I know.
So you might as well just plug him in there. But I'll explain more in a bit. Brian Robinson. Your wide receivers are Amon-Ra, Tank Dell, and Robert Woods. Your tight end is Trey McBride. Your flex is Cole Kmet. And your defense is the Washington Commanders.
Okay.
So here we go. So it's a stack for the Houston Texans, Stroud, Woods, and Dell. If you're worried about, if anybody's worried about Nico Collins and we're not sure if he's questionable coming into the game, we know Woods is back, and we know that Arizona is definitely vulnerable to slot receivers. So we've seen that happen before. We're bringing back McBride against that stack because we know that he's going to be targeted. And even though he's super chalky, sometimes, the chalk hits, and sometimes you just kind of roll with that. Especially if it's gonna, you're paying $4,400 for them.
Yeah.
Now here's where the interesting correlation stuff comes into play. You've got Brian Robinson running against the Giants, and you figure, if you're thinking that this is going to be a very run heavy scheme, yes, Sam Howell will sling the rock early, but in that second half, like why wouldn't they just kill the clock, especially if they're up big? So you've got the Commanders' defense correlating with Brian Robinson right there. It matches up in that sense. And then you've got 2 pass catchers correlating in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Cole Kmet. If Cole Kmet has one of those big games, even if he just gets into the end zone once, right? He's going to be pulling value for you here at 4,100 out of your flex spot.
Yeah.
And Amon-Ra is, he's a PPR monster. And he's getting into the end zone these days. So, like, that's one of the things that I was kind of concentrating on with Malin. Now, Achane, you can, take your pick. That's you've got Achane. You could fit Aaron Jones in there. You can fit, whoever, right? That's like those James Conner. If you wanted to double up on the Arizona guys coming back, you could put Conner in there and see what happens and just kind of play around with it there. But the important factor for me here is that, we think that this Arizona-Houston game is going to pop. So we're stacking that front there. We're stacking the other team. Everybody's going to be in on Kyler Murray. So we're stacking the other way there. And then we're getting our correlation in another high-scoring expected game in Detroit-Chicago as well. So... And then obviously then the Robinson Commander stuff, just it fits with the game flow.
I like it.
Crazy, right? Like all of a sudden it was like, I've always talked about correlation with stacks and stuff like that. And I don't know why I was like missing that. Like, just take 2 fucking guys from another high scoring game that makes sense to go against each other.
Yeah.
I was sitting there looking at this game. That's why I was like, maybe Sam Laporta and DJ Moore. Maybe that's the way you go with that game. Instead of Kmet and Amon-Ra St. Brown, you could, instead of going with Achane, right, you throw in Jahmyr Gibbs into that spot, and you bring it back there with like Cole Kmet.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think that's a pretty good play there. I'll give you my lineup. I'll throw it on the screen here for everybody right now. I'll go and share this tab. This is one of the lineups that I've built already. Let me get your thoughts on it. So we have Stroud with Aaron Jones, James Conner, Hollywood Brown, McLaurin, Dell. So there's your little Houston, Arizona stack there. Conklin, Eckler. So you have both running backs in Green Bay and Chargers game, Jets defense.
Okay, so you're correlating with the running backs over there. It's okay, I mean, it's like, to me, I get it, and I understand exactly why you're doing it in that front. Whether or not you want to go, you have to think that both teams are going to be run heavy if you're correlating running backs against each other.
Those running backs also impact the passing game.
They also, they do catch passes. Absolutely.
So that's that's the thinking there. I think both teams struggle against the run as is, but both running backs also catch the football. So this is one of the lineups I had already built for this week here.
Yeah. I like Brown coming back against your stack.
Yeah, I know sometimes running backs and wide receivers as a stack together don't always correlate well because only one can score the touchdown, but these are the two guys outside of McBride, obviously, and you could make a pivot if you wanted to get McBride and move down to a different wide receiver there. But, a lot of targets go Brown's way. We know the carry is going to go with Connor here, and running the ball against Houston has been a way to attack it. So just an early build for me. Again, a lot of news still to come. A lot of things could change come Sunday morning. But just a lineup that I have out here for everyone as well.
Saturday, just so you know, John, and we'll tell everybody else here. Malin and I were talking about a little powwow, just trying to discuss things on Saturday. I have employed my wife's friend Tanya to take my wife out for a birthday dinner tomorrow night.
Okay.
So that I can have some peace and I got to deal with the playbook and everything like that during the day. And then they take my wife out for dinner. And then maybe you, me, and Malin, we sit down, we kind of discuss some more things there. And from that conversation, what I'll do is I'll add some tips for the lineup construction into the example lineups article that I do. Now, if you guys are, if you're members of Fantasy Alarm, you know that in the morning, what I do, and by morning, I mean like fucking 4 a.m., I post like all the, the potential stacking that you can do. I post all the news from Saturday and some different updates like that. But what I'll also add to this now is also a roster construction segment where we can just kind of share some of the thoughts that we've had going back and forth. Maybe we bring these lineups to the discussion on Saturday and we kind of work that. So it's a little bit of an added element. I was thinking about the possibility of us doing like a Saturday night stream just for shits and giggles, but obviously we don't want to like overload ourselves and all of our wives will kill us. It just so happens that my wife is being sent out for a birthday dinner. And we'll go from there. We'll see if let's see if we can't just rock the shit out of some GPP tournaments this week.
That is definitely the goal for everybody here. If you haven't yet already checked out the Fantasy Alarm All Pro subscription, I don't know what you're waiting for. Scan the QR code here on the screen. Go to fantasyalarm.com/win. If you sign up for our annual subscription right now, it's 40% off our month-to-month cost. So you can check that out. Get it for a full year. The full year obviously will include everything we have on site that is premium, including next year's fantasy football draft guide, the upcoming fantasy baseball draft guide, which is like a couple of months away from being out, which is crazy to think about already. All of our premium content behind the paywall, you guys get included in the annual sub. So check it out. Scan the QR code. Go to fantasyalarm.com/win and win with us here this week. It's holiday season, Howard. So, people got to make some money, win some money, buy some gifts. So be on the lookout for all that awesome stuff there. For now, though, everybody, we'll be wrong promo code. We'll see everybody here Sunday 9 to 10. Myself and Britt Flynn, 10 to 11. Coop and Ben are on Sirius XM, and then right back here 11 to 12. Me and Coop taking you through NFL inactives. We'll catch you guys later.